Hey everybody, Joe Diano here, aka Twisted Gemini, and welcome to Twisted Gemini TV. Firstly, I want to give a shout out to two people. Number one, MMA reporter Ariel Helwani, because in case you guys didn't hear, UFC lifted the ban that they put on Ariel, so he'll be allowed to report from UFC pay-per-views and shows, period. And second, to Susan Singari. I apologize if I said your last name wrong, but shout out to her because she posted a story on Twitter, which I'm going to get into in a few minutes, that I found rather interesting. Firstly, and this whole video ties into Conor McGregor, and I know in the past I've said that I don't plan on talking about him that much because I just don't like him. But to be fair, if there's a story on him that's relevant that I feel like talking about, I will, just to be fair. Not to him, to all of you that watch my videos. Couldn't care less for him, like I've said in the past. Tidbit number one, for those of you that might not know, and for those of you that do, I'll say it anyway. Jose Aldo was pulled out of his interim UFC featherweight title match with Frankie Edgar due to injury, and the UFC announced that Max Holloway will be taking Aldo's place. The fight will still be for the interim title. It's just now Aldo's out, Max is in. Second tidbit, once again, for those of you that might not know, and if you do, I'll say it anyway once again, UFC officially announced the rematch between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. Apparently, I was right when in previous videos when I said that this was more than likely going to happen. UFC killing two birds with one stone. Conor's back in the UFC fighting, Nate's back fighting, and they're fighting each other. Now, the thing that, before I get into the third thing, which is what Susan posted on Twitter, this is obviously going to affect the interim featherweight title fight because, as it was said in the past, the winner of said title fight would be the first fight for Conor McGregor to come back to the UFC. Now, obviously, with Conor being signed to fight Nate in the rematch, his title won't be on the line anytime soon again, which to me is ridiculous because this guy's a champion. Champions defend their titles. I don't care how much money or whatever this clown brings in. He's a champion. He should defend his title. Which now brings me to the third thing that Susan posted on Twitter. Susan basically posted an article. I believe she wrote it. I could be wrong. I could be right. Not real sure. That basically, to sum it all up, said that in Conor McGregor's MMA career, he's held 3 championships. I believe, once again, don't quote me on this, he held 1 title outside of the UFC and 2 inside the UFC. And in Conor's career with those 3 titles, he did not defend any one of them. Which, for me, is a joke because you've got guys that want to be champion, 2 of which at one point were Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo. Now you put Max Holloway in there. And this guy doesn't defend titles. For me, it's not about him wanting to be a champion and to defend it against everybody. It's about him wanting to become a champion so he can collect the payday because, in my opinion, Conor McGregor is a greedy bastard. Like I've said in the past, I'm not a Conor McGregor fan. I've got no admiration, no respect for this guy because he's a champion that's not defending his title. If this was anybody else, they would have been stripped of the title. I mean, recently in Bellator, the Bellator heavyweight champion was stripped of his title due to inactivity. Now, granted, yes, I know that's Bellator and this is the UFC we're talking about, but nonetheless, champions defend their titles. Conor McGregor isn't, and as always, the UFC is letting him get away with it, which is kind of ironic for me and kind of funny for me, considering the fact that Dana White outright said that he sometimes lets Conor get away with things, and he said that the things that Conor was doing that got him pulled off of UFC 200 wasn't right, and the things that he shouldn't be doing. But yet, the things that he shouldn't be doing is what the UFC is letting him do again, which is not defend his title. And, I know they're a business. I know they have to make money, and I know Conor McGregor brings in money. But if you're going to go on TV, you're going to do interviews, and you're going to say things that are going to happen, and then you don't let them happen, you make yourself look like a liar. You make the company look like a liar. So it's like, if you're not going to follow through, why bother saying it? And this isn't a first time thing. This has happened several times over the years where Dana White has said that somebody's going to get a title shot, and then it gets pushed back. And then it gets pushed back again and again and again until finally the UFC has no choice but to do it because there's nobody left for the champion to face. For me, if you're going to say it, do it. If you are going to go and do an interview and say that Conor McGregor's next title defense is going to be the winner of the interim title, don't sign him to fight somebody else. Let him wait for the fight that you said was going to happen, which is the interim champion versus Conor McGregor for the featherweight title. I think there needs to come a point where the UFC learns, but obviously they're not going to. They're one of those people that just doesn't learn. Because if they did learn from past mistakes, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing again. They say those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. UFC is doomed to repeat it. Because they're not remembering the past. They're not remembering the things that they've said in the past, which, like I said, to be repetitive, that there's going to be a title fight and then there isn't one because they went in another direction. It happened in the past. It's happened in the present. And obviously, it's going to keep on happening because the UFC is more concerned with making Conor McGregor happy so that way he'll make them money. And I know I'm probably going to get some people on here in the comments section talking about, it's a business and blah, 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 like I said. And if you don't care about Conor McGregor, what do you keep making videos on? I keep making videos on Conor McGregor because eventually I hope to one day reach the UFC with one of my videos about him. And they'll take to heart the fact that I'm an MMA fan that isn't a Conor McGregor fan, and I'm not a fan of the things that they're doing. Granted, once again, it's a business. What do they give a shit about what I have to say? I know they don't. They don't care about anything any fan thinks, as long as they can make money. Because if they did, they wouldn't do the things that they do. They wouldn't pass over fighters for title shots just to make one guy happy. Because like it's been said in the past, it's not Ultimate Fighting Conor McGregor, it's Ultimate Fighting Championship. One guy doesn't make a company. And that's why for me, I think UFC and Dana White, and I know Dana White isn't the guy that runs the UFC, but let's be honest, he's out there on the front lines. He's in some respects the face of the UFC because you don't really hear about the people that actually own it all the time. I mean, they exist, but whose name do you hear the most? And that's Dana White. and in some regards, the UFC kind of reminds me of WWE in a way, because, WWE says that they listen to the fans and they give the fans what they want, but there are those occasions where they don't, and they do what they need to do just for the sake of making money, and they put over guys that the fans don't like, and they keep shoving them down their throats and down their throats and down their throats, because the only thing they're interested in is making money, making our money, taking our money and putting it in their pockets. That's why, for me, the UFC needs to change the way they do things, because they're just making themselves look a fool by having a guy as champion who doesn't defend his title, by letting him do whatever he wants, even though they know they shouldn't, and they say they shouldn't. But, this is the UFC. They're going to do what they want regardless, because once again, it makes them money. I ain't faulting them for that, but at the same time, I am, because they know it's wrong and they do it anyway. Kind of like a kid that sticks a fork or a paper clip in an electrical socket. They know it's going to hurt, they know it's going to mess shit up, but they do it anyway. Sit back and watch as the debacle continues, I guess. And it's sad if you think about it, because they've got a long laundry list of guys that should be getting title shots at featherweight. Top of the list are the two guys that are going to be fighting for the interim title. But, like I said, I guess it doesn't really matter, because they got to make Conor happy. Well, that's all the time for this video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Leave your comments. I'll comment on anything, good, bad, ugly, don't matter. And as always, whatever city, state, country you're in, be happy, be safe. Until next time, this is Twisted Gemini TV signing off.